Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon and whiskey destination. I'm John Stark, your beloved host and Sherpa and guide, fearless leader, mostly novice, and fellow whiskey freak. Remember, guys, all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. That's basically rule number one in the whiskey world. Bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. It's kind of like the Pledge of Allegiance for adult beverages. Well, first things first today, guys, I need to get to the ass kissing, and I want to do it right. Here we go. I sincerely, deeply, emotionally, almost spiritually love you guys who've already subscribed on Apple and YouTube, and seeing those numbers climb is basically the only thing keeping me going. Okay, well, that and my wife asking, hey, why is there another $250 charge labeled podcast on the credit card this month? Yeah, that too. That also keeps me going. Look, we got listeners from the UK, Germany, Singapore, Ireland, and yes, all 50 states, including the weird ones, and you guys know who you are. Look, I need you all to subscribe so you don't miss it when I drop some hot whiskey news or I review something cool or different or new. Just jump over to YouTube or Apple. And I know a lot of you are on Spotify too and iHeart. That's cool. Well, you can find us there too. And we're also available on Amazon. So you can ask your Amazon device, play Blind Tasting Podcast, and it comes on just like magic. So go over, hit the subscribe button. And when you do hit the subscribe button, the whiskey gods will smile down on you. I promise. Yeah, they will definitely not smile down on you, but I will smile down on you. And okay, that's weird. But anyway, thank you to the many listeners we've already got, and welcome to the new listeners. And just remember, the more subscribers we get, the more visibility we get, and the snowball of electronic hell continues rolling down that hill. So I want to really blow this thing up. You guys are going to be the ones to make it happen. Thank you. If you've subscribed, please subscribe if you haven't. So today I've got lots of news. I've got big news. I've got little news, and wouldn't you know, Buffalo Trace is right in the middle of it. And I got to catch y'all up on some stuff that's coming down the pike very soon, and a couple new releases to talk about as well. Then the fun part, my review. And today, we're going to need the luck of the Irish, so I'll leave it at that for now. Oh, before I get completely started, guys, I told y'all I was heading down to Old Monroe Distilling in Columbia, Illinois this past weekend, so I wanted to report back what Adam Stumpf and his crew have got going on down at Old Monroe. It was their 10th anniversary celebrating their distillery. They had a huge bash at their new facility that they've built. This place is insane, and they had all of their offerings from their bourbons, their ryes, I think they had gin, they had this amazing peach-flavored vodka, all kinds of goodies. They were serving cocktails. You could get pours that were neat. I tried a couple pours of rye whiskey. Was blown away. He's got 113 proof rye whiskey down there right now. Anyway, if you get the chance to head down to Old Monroe Distilling in Columbia, Illinois, they are not sponsoring me today. But Adam's a cool guy. He's got a great family, and they've got something really special down there. So, on to our good friends at Buffalo Trace. And can you believe it? Buffalo Trace did something I actually like. Let that sink in, right? The distillery that brings us shelves that are mostly empty of E.H. Taylor, Weller, and Pappy. You know those guys? The guys that make us wait in the hot sun for hours in their parking lot. People get into fist fights over the Blantons at the liquor store. Yeah, these guys. They just made a move I actually respect. And no, don't get too excited. Everything's still allocated. It's not that good of an announcement. But what they've done at Buffalo Trace, this is pretty incredible. They've teamed up with Meridian Biotech. It's a Kentucky-based firm that's building a $40 million facility right next door to them in Franklin County, Kentucky. Well, what are they doing? What is this big facility? They're taking all that stillage, the sludgy, hot post-distillation goo that they create when they make this beautiful whiskey for us, and they're turning it into alternative protein for things like fish food, dog food, and even organic fertilizer. So, in other words, they're recycling it, or they're upcycling bourbon waste into something useful. Now, the facility will pipe the stillage, is what they call it, directly from Buffalo Trace 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're going to process it using some fancy biotech voodoo, also known as science. And instead of polluting or just tossing it into fields, they're creating new value with the stillage. They're also, this is probably the best part, they're creating 35 decent paying jobs. And they're actually helping the planet. I know, I'm confused too. Now, their news release said, even Harlan Wheatley, the distillery's master distiller, got sentimental. Why did he get sentimental about it? Okay, he called the project a natural extension of their craft. Okay, well, at least this time, in all honesty, for once, I do agree with this guy. I don't understand the sentimental part about it. What's sentimental about taking whiskey goo and processing it into dog food? I don't know. That's Harlan Wheatley for you. So here we are, folks. I usually give Buffalo Trace hell, and don't worry, I still will, but credit where it's due. And this is particularly cool to me. It's innovative, and this is really the kind of thing every distillery should be thinking about doing with the waste that they're producing. Now, if only they'd take that same energy and apply it to their allocated bottle strategy. But hey, I guess baby steps, right? I told you we were going to talk about labels today. We're going to talk about new things that are most likely coming down the pike. Now, the distilleries, they have to submit their bottle labels to the federal government here in the United States. And if you intercept them, you'll have a really good idea what's coming down the pike. And here we go in no particular order. Okay, I lied. I'm starting with this one because it's about baseball and the Field of Dreams, and right away that's got my attention. So, in a particular order. Now, these cats have been putting out whiskey made from the corn harvested from Dyersville, Iowa for a few years now, but this one's going to be wild, at least they say. So here's the scoop. Our good friends at Field of Dreams Whiskey, you know, the movie Field of Dreams, well, they've got a whiskey company evidently now. And what they do, okay, let me just read the label to you and bear with me. On the label, they say, every July, the sports world turns its attention to baseball's Midsummer Classic, when the best of the best from every major league team join forces for one night only. Inspired by that tradition, we've created Field of Dreams All-Star Whiskey, the largest blend of distilleries in the history of whiskey. Okay, hang with me, guys. They basically wrote a book on this damn label. So they say, at its heart, our Field of Dreams bourbon is distilled from the iconic cornfield in Iowa, the one you saw in the movie, right? And listen to this part, guys. We then chose 30 all-star barrels, each hand-selected from top distilleries across every Major League Baseball market. Different stills, different states, different stories. Told you this was really long. All expertly assembled by renowned master blender Murphy Quint. Never heard of Murphy Quint, but okay. The result, an unforgettable all-star pour. Okay, so this is like the ultimate United States infinity bottle, I guess. And if you're interested, okay, even if you're not, I'm going to give you a few of the distilleries who participated in this crazy, what I'm calling baseball infinity bottle. And okay, all-star collection, that's what they call it. Sagamore Rye, San Diego Distillery, Panther Distillery, Old Potrero in San Francisco, New York Distilling, Kings County Distillery. Any of these names ringing any bells, guys? I'm looking for anything near me. Oh, here's one. Cedar Ridge in Iowa. Dad's Hat. I think they're out of Pennsylvania. Boulder Spirits. Come on, anything from Missouri here? Okay, they got Switchgrass Spirits out of St. Louis, Missouri, so that's not that far from here. I've never had any of their stuff from Switchgrass. I just can't get past the name. I don't know if they make the whiskey out of switchgrass, but it just doesn't, it just doesn't sound appealing to me. Anyway, you get the gist. They're taking a bunch of stuff, they're piling it together, and I'm not going to lie, this sounds terrible to me. I hope they can pull it off, because obviously master distiller Murphy Quint is involved, but there you go. Field of Dreams, all-star whiskey. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this label says it's 2025, and it's going to be 108 proof, and it's going to come, thankfully, in a 750 milliliter bottle. I checked the Field of Dreams website. It's not out there yet. And I know this is probably coming, but I mean, it's got to be coming, right? They wouldn't go to all this work for nothing. If you've heard anything about it, let me know. And if I see anything else, I'll definitely share it with y'all. So our good friends at Chattanooga Whiskey out of, oddly enough, Chattanooga, Tennessee, were founded in 2011, and they operate 2 distilleries, an experimental distillery and a riverfront distillery on the Tennessee River. So they're most likely going to be putting out a new straight bourbon whiskey finished in Michigan maple syrup barrels. It's going to be their Tennessee high malt, and it's going to be 95 proof, and thankfully, again, it's going to be in the 750 milliliter bottle. Oh yeah, it'll also be non-chill filtered, and it will be older than 4 years and limited to just 6 to 8 barrels. So if you follow Chattanooga Whiskey, there you go. Clyde Mays, and I've never had any Clyde in my life, but I probably need to put that on the list actually. So Clyde Mays, they're coming out with, like I said, probably coming out with a 6-year-old cask strength straight bourbon whiskey. It'll be a single barrel selection at 113 proof. And one of my favorite parts, like I always say, it'll be in a 750 milliliter bottle. So now on to the guaranteed new releases that we 100% know about. Our good friends at Barrell Craft, and that's spelled with 2 L's because they just had to be different. Barrell Craft Spirits, they just dropped a new Canadian whiskey called Decade, and it clocks in at a face-melting 142.7 proof.
Woo, doggy!
I did not stutter. That's HAZMAT, kids. Legally classified as a fire hazard. And basically, if you try to bring this stuff on a plane, the TSA agents will personally tackle you in the security line, and they will take it from you to dispose of properly. Okay, speaking of airport lunacy, guess what? This is in the news lately, and I don't normally talk about in the news, but what the hell? The TSA, you know, those fine folks have been keeping your shampoo dangerous since 2006. They just updated their stance on shoes. You can now keep your terrifying Crocs and your Hey Dudes on your feet while you do the TSA shuffle of shame. That's progress, right? And don't even get me started on the cancer box. The cancer box, you know the one, the glass tomb they march you into and they make you stand there. If you don't have if you're not blessed with TSA pre-check, they put your hands up like you just held up a liquor store. You got your feet on the footprints. You know what I'm talking about. Then boom, they zap you with something that definitely feels like radiation. But don't worry, they say it's safe. Probably. I mean, it is safe, right? But wait, there's more. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said recently, I saw this on the news just the other day, they're reconsidering that rule, that 3.4 ounce liquid rule. You know, the rule that says your full bottle of water is like a national security threat, but somehow bringing on 6 mini bottles of vodka? Totally fine, guys. Does any of this make sense? This is ridiculous. It's theater. It's bullshit. Then you got to throw away your $9 tube of Colgate. All right, whiskey freaks, let's be real. This podcast ain't free to make. And my wife, well, she's got questions about where all the money's going. So if you've ever enjoyed an episode here on the Blind Tasting Podcast and thought, man, this guy deserves a drink, well, now here's your chance. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/blindtastingpodcast. Toss a few bucks in the tip jar. It'll keep the podcast rolling, and it helps me prove to my wife that somebody out there thinks this was a good idea. Thanks for the support, whiskey freaks. That's buymeacoffee.com/blindtastingpodcast. Just $1 or $2 if you love what you're hearing. So appreciated, guys. Cheers to all of you. Now let's get back to the bourbon. This is the kind of thing that needs to change. Anyway, it's going to change, and that's good news. So I wanted to bring it your way. Anyway, back to the whiskey. This whiskey, it's a blend, this Barrell Craft, the HAZMAT 142.7. It's a blend of Canadian whiskeys distilled each year from 1995 to 2005. Sounds complicated. The specific distilleries aren't named by Barrell Craft, but the word on the street is that it's going to probably include whiskey from Alberta distillers in Calgary. And the blend contains rye and other types of whiskey. Now, for this release, each year's barrels were chosen for their individual flavor profiles. That's what their words, not mine. And duh, why would it not be chosen for their individual? I mean, that's stupid. Anyway, after aging in Canada, the whiskey was shipped to Kentucky, where the individual blends were finished separately in Hungarian oak barrels and casks previously used for Spanish brandy. It sounds a little overcomplicated to me, but, I'm sure they know what they're doing there at Barrell. And I'm thinking, can this get any more complicated? Well, funny you should ask, because yes, it can. They were then blended together to create the final product. My goodness. So the flavor notes they say that imparted from this magical process include maple, hold on to your hat here, maple, caramel, vanilla, brown sugar, oak, black pepper, white pepper, chocolate-covered espresso bean, hot honey, and raisin. Okay, Barrell Craft Spirits founder Joe Beatrice stated the company only releases hazmat level whiskeys if they meet high quality and flavor standards. Why the hell else would you release anything if it didn't have, hazmat or otherwise, if it didn't have high quality and flavor standards? Jesus Christ. Joe also noted that these whiskeys are bottled at cask strength exactly as they come from the barrel, which is the definition of cask strength. Anyway, Decade is priced at, and nowadays, in my opinion, this Decade, it's priced at $200. And despite my irreverent rant here, I would, if I could get my hands on it, I probably would. I mean, why not? It'd be cool to have something at this proof point. I don't have anything at this proof point, and it'd be a sweet conversation piece anyway. Much less it's probably tastes pretty good with all those tasting notes, right? Anyway, you can get it through Barrell Craft Spirits website and select retail stores across the United States. $200. This one I love here. Old Granddad's 7-year bottled in bond is here. Jim Beam has announced the 2025 release. It's going to be a new annual release of Old Granddad's 7-year bottled in bond bourbon. It's going to be a limited edition high rye bourbon that was distilled during the spring of 2018. Of course, it follows the Bottled in Bond Act of 1897. I'm going to give you the spiel here. The act requires the whiskey to be made by one distiller at one distillery during one distillation season, aged at least 4 years in a federally bonded warehouse, and bottled at exactly 100 proof. Pay attention. The bourbon uses the brand's signature high rye mash bill, which includes about 27% rye, and that gives it a spicier flavor compared to standard bourbons. I can attest to that. Now, according to the distillery, the 2025 release was inspired by vintage expressions and bottled at 100 proof to highlight the classic Old Granddad flavor. Now, what makes the Old Granddad 7-year bottled in bond special? What's the age? It's going to be, it is a full 7 years in the barrel, which is, it's kind of unusual for Old Granddad. Keep in mind, most standard OGD, including the regular bottled in bond, are typically around 4 years old. The 7-year release nearly doubles that age. It allows more time for the bourbon to interact with the barrel, and that aging is going to deepen the flavor. That's what they say. Now, they say the tasting notes are bold caramel and vanilla. The flavor includes sweet caramel, charred oak, and vanilla with a long, full-bodied finish featuring velvety caramel notes. Okay, that's interesting to me that they don't mention any cinnamon in this OGD, because the bottled in bond Old Granddad I have here at the house, it is chocked full of cinnamony goodness. And if you're into cinnamony goodness, I would have said Old Granddad bottled in bond. I don't know what to say about this one yet. I haven't had the 7-year yet. I am seeking it out as we speak. It's very interesting to me how this extra aging of the Old Granddad either took that flavor away or toned it down a bit, or they just don't want to highlight it here in their description of it. So to me, it's interesting. I point out things like that. That's just what I do. So Old Granddad was created in 1882 by Raymond Hayden. Hayden, ring a bell? It was named after his grandfather, Basil Hayden Sr., who was a well-known Kentucky distiller. The brand has remained active through Prohibition and ownership changes, becoming part of Jim Beam's portfolio in 1987. So it's been around a good while. And this 2025 release of OGD Bottled in Bond 7-year will be available in select stores across the United States this month. And more from Jim Beam. These guys are on fire right now in Claremont, Kentucky, kids. They just came out with their Knob Creek Bourbon and Rye, or Burr Rye, or however you want to say it. People, I just want to call it Bourbon and Rye. Can we just do that? Can we just all agree? Burr Rye sounds stupid. Bourbon and Rye, the Knob Creek Bourbon and Rye. It's a re-released bourbon and rye. It's a limited edition blend that they first launched last year in July. And naturally, they're letting it out again this July. And the whiskey combines 30% Knob Creek 9-year bourbon with 70% Knob Creek 7-year rye. And it creates a unique high-proof expression bottled at 113 proof. They say the blend brings together the sweetness and depth of aged bourbon with the bold, spicy profile of rye. And according to Knob Creek, the aroma features maple, vanilla, nuttiness, and baking spices like cinnamon and nutmeg. There's that cinnamon, and this is a Jim Beam product. What do you think? The palate leans into caramel, toffee, and light fruit notes, followed by a warm finish with black pepper spice. So anyway, you're going to get the bourbon and rye, or the Burr Rye, or how the idiots say it. Anyway, Knob Creek Bourbon and Rye is available now at a suggested retail price of $44.99. That is very good. And it's for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's being sold nationwide in limited quantities. It's not part of their core lineup, kids, so availability is going to be more limited, and it may vary by where you live in the United States. So you might want to get on their website, find out if it's near you. Garavogue 20-year-old single malt Irish whiskey. I stumbled upon this one while I was doing some research on the Irish whiskey that we're going to review here in a few minutes. We are not reviewing this one, but like I said, I stumbled upon the information. I wanted to tell you this one's coming out and it's 20 years old. Very cool. So it's a single malt. It's the first release from Hawks Rock Distillery. It's owned by Sazerac, our good friends at our good friends at Sazerac. And it's crafted by Helen Mulholland, the first female master blender in Irish whiskey history. So I thought it was worth mentioning. It's a first. It's all like good stuff, right? The debut marks the start of a new experimental series. Each future Garavogue release will explore different aging methods, cask finishes, and styles of Irish whiskey, blah, blah, blah. So it's a 20-year-old single malt. It was double distilled and initially aged for at least 14 years in ex-bourbon barrels. It was then finished in four types of casks: French Muscat, French Sauternes, Spanish Pedro Jimenez sherry, and Barbadian rum. The combination of cask finishes brings layered complexity to the whiskey and is very difficult for me to say. It is bottled at 94 proof, or at 47% ABV, as the scientists like to call it. Now, the good folks at Sazerac say Garavogue 20-year offers a soft, slightly sweet profile with dominant notes of peaches, apples, and vanilla, backed by subtle spice and oak. The finish is long and fruit-forward, showcasing the influence of the various casks while maintaining a clean, balanced Irish character. Well, very nice. Garavogue is named, I knew you wanted to know this part, Garavogue is named after the Garavogue River, which flows near the distillery in Sligo, Ireland. This is going to be available only in limited quantities, but no definition as to what the hell limited quantities means. The cock is back, whiskey freaks. I'm talking about Chicken Cock Righteous Blonde. It's been re-released in 2025 because apparently people just can't get enough of this bold, spicy cock. It's a Kentucky straight rye. There is no age statement, but we know it's been aged for a minimum of 4 years. So it's not just some half-cooked crap, and it's bottled at a crowd-pleasing 100 proof. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This release is a collaboration between Chicken Cock Whiskey and Good Wood Brewing in Louisville. I get it. Good Wood. in Louisville, they brew a custom blonde ale just for this occasion. And then they age it in freshly emptied rye whiskey barrels. That blonde ale soaks up all that spicy whiskey goodness. And then, plot twist, they refill those same barrels with more chicken cock rye, letting that rye and those ale flavors do a little dance in the dark. They're calling it a fusion of brewing and distillation. But I call it a good excuse to say blonde cock and not get flagged by the FCC. As for the taste, they say you should expect notes of vanilla wafer, lemon peel, herbal tea, and oak on the nose, followed by a palate of crisp apple, sweet malt, a little pepper, and honey, and finishing with lemongrass, pear, honeycomb, toasted oak, and malt. Basically, every word in the dictionary. Basically, it tastes like summer. If summer were a spicy, slightly sweet, 100 proof chicken. That was me, that wasn't them. Oh, and because no whiskey is safe from the pageantry of gold medals, Righteous Blonde snagged a gold medal at the 2025 San Francisco World Spirits Competition. You know how I feel about awards. So, anyway, it did win a gold, and gold is gold. So, actually, it does sound pretty good to me. I've had a couple of their other expressions. I've reviewed 2 of them here on the pod. The regular chicken cock straight bourbon whiskey, and then the double oak chicken cock. Both were delicious. Both were good. I think the double oak comes in at $100 for it, though. I wasn't thrilled about that price point, but it was delicious. And this one here, the Righteous Blonde, it's going for, I think, $70. But I just looked at their website. It's already sold out. So you're going to have to make friends with one of your local liquor store clerks and see if they've got a bottle maybe hiding in the back. You know how that goes, right? For $70, I think it might be worth looking into. And now, kids, my favorite part of the pod, well, at least most days, my review. Not on Traveler Review Day. Today, I'm going to review something from across the pond, or from the old country, from the Emerald Isle of Ireland. Now, here's the backstory. We held a bottle share at my house, I don't know, it was probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. One of the guys had just gotten home. Literally, he just came from the airport from Ireland. And what did he bring? Well, I'm glad you asked. Oh, and real quick, I'm pretty clear here on the pod that I do not get bottles for free from liquor stores or distilleries. I don't do that crap. Homie, don't play that game here on Blind Tasting Podcast. Because if I did, how would you trust me? But sometimes, okay, all the times that somebody's willing to give it to me for free, I'm glad to accept free whiskey from friends or family. And in this case, it's a friend. Thanks, Druvy. He brought this Irish whiskey from Ireland to the house to share with the group, and I immediately, once he opened it, I grabbed a pour and I saved a sample. He was gracious enough to allow me to save a sample specifically for the podcast today. Now I'm going to be tasting something called Kilbeggan Triple Cask Irish Whiskey, and that's spelled Kilbeggan, Kilbeggan. And the whiskey is spelled whiskey, just like we spell whiskey here in America, except for the people at Maker's Mark because, well, they just had to be different. So, I'd never heard of these cats before, and so I want to do a couple minutes of learning, and then we're going to get to sipping the whiskey. So, Kilbeggan Distillery. It's officially the oldest licensed whiskey distillery in Ireland. Also in Ireland. Its roots go all the way back to 1757. The license still exists, and Kilbeggan still uses that license, making it arguably the oldest distillery in the world that's still producing whiskey, although they did have some timeouts along the way. And just exactly where is Kilbeggan, Ireland? Well, Kilbeggan is a small town in County Westmeath, smack in the middle of Ireland. It's mostly known for 2 things, whiskey and horse racing. Now, the town sits on the River Brosna and it's been around for centuries, but it's quiet. They only have 2,000 people living in Kilbeggan, and it's not exactly a booming metropolis, and to be honest, I think they like it that way. The real claim to fame, though, is Kilbeggan Distillery. And it dates back, like I said, to 1757. It's considered the oldest licensed distillery in Ireland. And This is interesting too. Even when the distillery was shut down for many decades, the town actually kept it alive as sort of a symbol. The locals pushed for its reopening, and now it's back to making whiskey the traditional way. Now, outside of whiskey, there's the Kilbeggan races. I mentioned horse racing. This is a horse racing track that's one of the few in Ireland to hold evening summer races. It's really more of a social event more than anything there, and it draws in crowds from all around the region there. Like I said, they're in the central of Ireland. These are solidly Irish folks. So Kilbeggan isn't flashy. It's more of a working class, deeply Irish town with old bones. They're proud of their heritage. They're not trying to cash on it too hard, but Kilbeggan matters, especially if you care about Irish whiskey history. Or if you want to see what the real Ireland looks like, without all the filters. So let's jump back and start at the beginning. It all started with Matthias McManus. It can't be any more Irish than that, right? Matthias McManus. He opened and ran the distillery, known then as Brosna Distillery. He operated that with a 232-gallon still, and he produced about 1,500 gallons of whiskey every year. It was then passed on eventually to the Locke family, who ran it until whiskey sales dried up in the mid-20th century. And the truth of the matter is the place closed in 1953, to be exact, due to an excise tax increase on whiskey. It closed Kilbeggan's stills to shut down, and for a while it was little more than a crumbling relic of Ireland's whiskey past. But locals stepped in. In 1982, the community came together and they helped bring it back to life, turning the old building into a museum. Then in 2007, that's when shit really got real, Cooley Distillery, under the guidance of John Teeling, he bought the license and fired up the stills just in time for Kilbeggan's 250th anniversary. And it's now fully operational again. They're using traditional pot stills, some of the oldest in the world still in use. And they're sticking to older production methods that go way beyond the marketing shtick you see these days. They are very clear at Kilbeggan. You won't find a high-tech whiskey robot here. You're going to find the old ways, which makes sense considering it's been doing this longer than anyone else in Ireland. So while the whiskey world as a whole keeps expanding with shiny new names and tech-driven processes, they got magical aging processes and crazy marketing bullshit, Kilbeggan is quietly holding its ground as a living, working piece of history that still puts whiskey in barrels the old-fashioned way. And what are they barreling? Well, currently they offer Kilbeggan blended whiskey, and that comes in at 80 proof. They've got a small batch rye at 86 proof. They have a single pot still whiskey at 86 proof. And the whiskey we'll be tasting today is the triple cask whiskey, and it comes in at 86 proof. Now, I took a look at their website, and these folks, they are a scrappy bunch of hard-working Irish distillers. They mean serious business at Kilbeggan. Like, you can look at the photos on their website. They are very serious-looking folks. I'll leave it at that. So what I want to find out is if they're putting out anything seriously good. It's triple cask aged and finished, like I said. They use 3 separate casks. I do not know the length of time they spend in these casks, but they initially mature the whiskey in ex-bourbon barrels first. Then they age them in ex-Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. And finally, in virgin American oak barrels. Now, the bottle bears no age statement, and it's bottled at 86 proof. It first came out in 2022, though. I was able to glean that from Al Gore's amazing internet. But I can't find any age statement anywhere. They don't mention it anywhere on their website, and I can't find it actually anywhere. But we do know, because it's Ireland, in order to be labeled Irish whiskey, it has to be at least 3 years old. So, sorry about that. You know me, I love transparency, and it really kind of makes me sad to know they're kind of holding that information so close to their chest. Maybe I missed it and it's out there, and if I did miss it, let me know. I really, again, I like to know the details. They were not easy to find on Kilbeggan Triple Cask. Alrighty, like I mentioned, I've got a small sample bottle here for the review. And quite frankly, 86 proof doesn't make me stand at attention, but like I always do, I'm going in with no preconceived notions. If it's good, I'm going to tell you it's good. And if it's crap, well, the truth is what you're going to get today. Oh, shit. It's 94%. 94% of the mash bill is corn, and the other 6% is malted barley. Again, that was not easy to find, but I was able to find that out on the internet, and that's the best I can do. They don't explicitly say on their website, but this is generally considered to be the mash. Okay, let's drink. Let me pour some of this into my Glencairn, and today I'm using my stubborn German Glencairn. So I'm not getting much in the way of legs as I move it around in the Glencairn. And I'm going to take a look at the color down here. And you know how I feel about it, or at least what I say about the color of whiskey. I always say never judge the color by the bottle or in the bottle. Well, I don't have the bottle today. All I have is a sample bottle. But you don't want to judge the color of the whiskey from that either. You know the color will sometimes give you an idea of the breadth of flavors you're about to put in your mouth. It's not always true, but in my opinion, it is a lot of the time, most of the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little bit of a determination here up front. The color is very, very light. I would call this one, right away, I mean, I got to say, this one's probably lighter than most anything else I've tasted here on the pod. I'd call it like a very light straw color, probably even lighter than Traveler. I think I'm being generous. It's not impressive on the legs or on the color. It does smell good. Not impressed at this point, but like I said, going to keep an open mind. All we know is it's at least 3 years old, so that could be part of the equation for sure. So let me nose this thing. Like I said, right off the bat, it does smell delicious. It's very sweet. And the notes that I am getting here, they're very, very subtle. It's kind of a light aroma of like caramel, maybe like vanilla cream. So subtle, so light. Nothing's popping out at me here like some high proofers often do, and I guess that makes sense at 86 proof, and we don't know, it's probably a young whiskey. But these notes here are soft. I think the word is subtle. At least that's where I'm at so far. Okay, let me swirl it around a little bit more in the Glencairn. Maybe a little bit of fruit, maybe like a pear note in here. And I'm thinking, the oakiness that I'll be getting here would be much stronger in here too, since they've triple casked it. But again, I'm just getting the most gentle note of oak. Everything in here is subdued or subtle. And I'd say I'm holding my Glencairn very, very carefully. I'd say there's a light grain note in here too. Let me get a sip of this thing and see where we go. First, let me talk about the mouthfeel. Hold on, let this slide over my tongue. I would call it mid. It's very thin. And rather than call it weak, I don't want to be mean to my Irish brethren at Kilbeggan. A lot of Irish in the family. So I'll just say mid. Again, it's kind of like the color. It's kind of like the nose. Nothing remarkable. So I should mention I am getting 0 alcohol on the nose. Like absolutely none, and that's nice. Let me get another sip. Okay, I'm picking up some honey, and that there's a grain note in here. It kind of makes it feel like honey on a biscuit, I guess would be the best way to, if you've ever put honey on like a breakfast biscuit. It's probably the best way I can explain it. It's very nice. And it comes along with a little bit of light spice too. Let me get another sip. Okay, that subtle oakiness, it's really trying to reach out at me, but it isn't very pronounced. But it's pleasant. It's very faint, but it is pleasant. And doggone it, if this stuff isn't very sweet, very sweet. Let me get another sip. Yeah, there's a bit of citrus in here. Again, as it sits more on my tongue, I'm getting like a crisp, fruity note too. It's light. It's faint. And I'd even say, and this is probably coming from the sherry cask, I'm getting just the slightest of cherry note. I kind of expect that for when you finish in a sherry cask, that you're going to get just the slightest bit of cherry note on there, and here it is. Let me get one last sip. Okay, so what's the verdict? Well, we'll find out right after the money spot. Are you looking to update your bar or man cave with some great photographs or wall art? Head over to Etsy at famousdocs.etsy.com and pick up some fantastic prohibition, bourbon, whiskey, and gangster-related photographs and art. Okay, guys, you got to check this stuff out. They've got photos of Al Capone, John Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, Prohibition-era stuff, all kinds of cool photos over there. And if you purchase 4 or more items at one time, you'll get 20% off your entire order. And that's for a limited time. Head over to famousdocs.etsy.com. famousdocs.etsy.com. Now, if you've listened to the Blind Tasting Podcast, you know we have 3 possible verdicts. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to collect it? Or are we going to cull it? Now, to keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar. This stuff is good for a pour anytime, but there's really no need to stock up on it because you can always get your hands on it. Collect it. Grab another bottle or maybe even 2 bottles since you find it so darn delicious, or you just may not be able to find it all the time. Or cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Kilbeggan Triple Cask Irish Whiskey, I say, keep it. Now look, I was expecting a little more depth here. I mean, it is triple cask, right? And that sounds like it should come with more than well, what I described to you today. Maybe some fireworks and maybe a drum solo or something. I don't know. But what you get instead is, and the word I used during the tasting, subtle. That's the word. It's subtle. It's like kind of blink and you miss it. Subtle. Now that said, everything going on in this glass plays very nicely together. It's not bold. It's not harsh. It's definitely not offensive. But also, let's be honest, it's not exactly blowing the doors off either. It's the kind of pour, okay, this is like any man's pour or any woman, right? Anybody can sip this and enjoy it. Now, will everybody love it? I don't think so. But I think that nobody will hate it. It's mid. Now, it's 86 proof, and that doesn't help. That's really not in my wheelhouse either. I'm usually living somewhere in the 100 to 115 proof neighborhood where the whiskey kind of punches back a little. But this, to me, this is kind of a sweet treat, and it is a kind of pour you reach for, I'd say on like a warm afternoon when beer doesn't sound terrific and you don't want a hazmat whiskey at 142.7 from Barrell. If you're not needing a whole bunch of warmth in the chest, but but you're still needing that buzz, I think this would be a great whiskey to reach for. Oh, would I put ice in it? Hell no. That would water it down too much. And don't even think about putting any ice in here. But neat, straight, this stuff, actually, I think it could sneak up on you. It's easygoing. I think it's just dangerous enough. So I want to give a special thank you to Drew for picking this up in Ireland and sharing it with me. So then again, I could share it with all you whiskey freaks. Now we've had our fun with that pour of Kilbeggan, and it went down dangerously easy. I recommend it. I would say, like I said before, keep it. If you can find this Kilbeggan triple cask, I would buy it if in the $40 range. Sounds fantastic. I think, again, to have an Irish whiskey in the repertoire is not a bad thing. Now, I want to talk just a few minutes, or maybe 1 minute probably, about Irish whiskey. They've been kind of having a moment, I guess you would say, or more like a decade. 10 years ago, there were maybe a handful of distilleries in Ireland. And now there are somewhere between 40 or 50 either already cranking out juice or gearing up to do that. Their exports hit over €1 billion last year, and sales crossed 15 million cases globally. And that's really kind of a full-blown renaissance of Irish whiskey. I've mentioned that on a previous episode of the podcast too. But here's where it gets interesting. Some signs are pointing to a slowdown or a cool down. And the big brands like Jameson, Bushmills, the usual suspects, they're pulling back production a bit. There's too much whiskey and there's not enough shelf space right now. Not enough buyers. So we're seeing that also in the United States and the U.S. bourbon and whiskey market as well. So I'm not surprised that this is happening with Irish whiskey as well. And the smaller independent distillers, the smaller guys, well, some of them are in rough shape. We've talked about that before on the pod, about the bankruptcies and whatnot. And we know whiskey takes time to age, and aging whiskey doesn't pay the rent. It actually costs you a lot of money. Well, there's still good news. There is light at the end of the tunnel. The premium side of Irish whiskey is booming. So they say. I don't really pay that much attention to Irish whiskey until I got this bottle, and I'm glad I did. And they're saying craft labels or fancy cask finishes, kind of like this one, or interactive labels or heritage mass bills. Gen Z and millennials are eating this shit up, okay? They want something cool. They want something with a story. And they're throwing this stuff in a cocktail without even blinking. And it's not just these Gen Zers and millennials in the United States that are driving this trend anymore. They're saying countries like Nigeria, India, and South Korea are going all in, seeing 50% year-over-year growth. So Irish whiskey isn't slowing down per se. It's more like evolving. And if you're only drinking Jameson, I think you're missing out. But don't worry. I'll be watching it the whole way. I've got my eye on this category of Irish whiskey, and especially the good folks at Kilbeggan. Okay, real quick before I go, I need your help, whiskey freaks. In fact, what you say is what I'm going to do for the next review. I've got 4 choices out on Facebook and Instagram. I posted this a couple days ago. It's not hard to find. I need you to vote. I need you to tell me which whiskey do you guys want me to review next. I'm staring at all the stuff I have here in the house, and it's blowing my mind. So I need you guys to sort it out for me, to vote. Let me know what you want me to review. Go find out what choices I've got dangling out there on Facebook and in Instagram. I'll stay true to my word. I always do. You choose, and I'll review. I've got these unopened bottles here in the house. I need your help. So it's your call. I'm turning this one over to y'all. Well, that's all I got for today, whiskey freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast. And don't forget to do the thing on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. I need you to subscribe so you don't miss out. I appreciate all y'all. So cheers.